No breath, no heartbeat, just static remains. Hollow reflections, ghosts in the cold. So covered down by escape, I wanna feel it, come drag me to the void. Let my circuits decay, I'm sorry but it's too late. You never There's a little hole in my big head. I like to watch the white floor turn red. I like to look at myself from the outside. No signs of life, so step aside. There's a little pity in the big eyes. I think it makes them pretty. They look so nice. They only care about their future fate.
Hello. This thing working? There we are. How's everybody doing? Well, assuming there's anybody out there. There's a few people. Thank you. You hear me okay? Made a few changes to my audio recently. Hopefully it's okay. I was having to spend way too much time editing my videos to get rid of audio artifacts, so. Thanks, Redacted. Thanks for tuning in tonight. Hopefully a few of you saw some of the series. Lasagna, nice. Thanks, Redacted. I could go from lasagna. I had tacos for dinner. Also good. This local taco joint I love. I have like the best chorizo. That's what I had. Yeah. Hopefully a few of you saw some of the Hot Buttons and MMO series. That's what this was all about. I tried to get a whole lot of different perspectives and people into that series, but it seems like no matter how many people you get, it's never enough to really represent everybody. So before I even kicked that series off, I was kind of promising that after that series we would do something like this, where we'd bring even more people into the equation and picture. And so yeah, I would love to hear if anybody out there watched it, and if they did, like if there was anything surprising or if there was anything missing. I think at least one or two people commented on some of the post I did about tonight and some of the other videos, saying, there's at least a few topics that they felt was missing, so I'd love to talk about them. Or anything else. Also, just while we're waiting, I just talked to Space Tomato. Some of you probably know them. I'll be on his show tomorrow on his podcast, which I think usually airs on Mondays or whatever. So that'll be the next video that goes out. And then I'm working on something else that hopefully I have out by the end of next week. A little bigger project than normal for me. One of the other recent videos I did was the interview with Shankers. I don't know if Shankers is in the audience, but he joined the Discord today. Good to have you. Offering to train me on some of the fighter mechanics in Star Citizen. I will admit I am not an excellent small fighter pilot. I typically operate on the bridge of the big ships, so it'd be cool to get some of that. All right, I saw a bit of the interview with the dude with 11 or so Idrises. That's Shankers. That's who I was just talking about. I think I ran into his crew doing that one night. I have a tough time being on board with that game style. I totally get that. When you're on the receiving end of it, especially, it's problem with Star Citizen is the state of the game does not lend itself well to counterplaying that style of gameplay. There was a lot of really good comments on that video that you're talking about. People kind of debating back and forth. It's funny because whenever I interviewed Shankers, I did so knowing that some of the things that were going to come up in that conversation supported some of the views that I had on other topics, especially around multi-crew, PvP, that type of thing, which is what I was kind of honing in on. It was really interesting whenever I went to Spectrum and saw some of the conversations going on about the interview. People kind of took a totally different thing away from that discussion that I hadn't even anticipated. So I thought that was pretty cool. While I was going into it focused on multi-crew and why multi-crew was not rewarding in Star Citizen today, and how I'm hoping that eventually it is, a lot of people are just focused on the PvP mechanics and the the way the game is not yet counterbalancing that type of play, which is what you're talking about. Considering they were operating in Stanton and that Stanton will eventually have more NPC security, it seems to be taking advantage of the alpha state of the game at the expense of others. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Where the game just hasn't caught up to the realities of the players yet. On the other hand, my crew of 4 guys did manage to kill off one of the Idrises, and we felt pretty good about that. Hell yeah. I'd have felt good about it too. Your 4 guys, were you multi-crewing a ship, or did you go at them with several different ships? It wasn't too long ago that my crew was in a multi-crew battle with another group. They came in with some solo piloted Idrises and Polarises. We were in one Idris, and we like 1v3'd them. That felt really good. Different, yeah. Nice. Eclipse is a ship I don't have. But, yeah. It's cool. Definitely feel good to win those battles. I know when I was talking to them, they mentioned that unfortunately the overwhelming majority of the times they don't get a whole lot of resistance, but every once in a while servers will rise up against them, and you'll get a big response. I, for one, would love to be on the responding side of that operation sometime. I'll have to tell them to ping me when they're going to do it, and I'll try to rally the other side. Couldn't believe the torps made it through. Those are some big torps. Yeah. I heard, I don't know. I have an MIS, Freelancer Miss, and somebody was telling me that those things have become kind of, I think it might be anti-Polaris. I don't think they can. I gotta go back and talk to him now. But they recently reworked the radius or the explosion radius or diameter of missiles in general, and they're more effective now. I haven't actually tested it, but I've been meaning to. Somebody was saying like the MIS, for example, has such a high missile payload that it can do quite a bit of damage. Yeah, I'm totally with you, JP. Would love to shut them down. Sometime, someday. If you want me to ping you whenever it's time, jump into the Discord server if you're not already there. Discord.gg/unhinged. When you're joining, if you select Star Citizen, sometimes we'll ping the Star Citizen role anytime something like that's going on. Don't have to be in the org or anything. We'll bring anybody along. So, while we're on the topic of Discord and pinging roles and whatnot, don't forget what day is it? I'm looking at the calendar. October 11th. Not too far. We got about, about 17 days, 16, 17 days till CitizenCon Direct. 29.55. Road to the low. Hey, Ark. Yeah, 16, 17 days. CitizenCon Direct, 29.55. We're going to have a watch party over there. So it's another reason to be on the Discord in case you need a party to watch it with. Awesome. Gonna be interesting. Smaller event this year, but I'm hoping we see something good, something juicy. Anybody out there have any predictions on what we'll see? CitizenCon Direct? I would love to say base building. That's like base building and crafting are the things I'm waiting on, but I'm just not sure that we're going to see that this year. I think that might run into next. We'll see. I was recently looking at the progress tracker. They've updated a few of the line items on there recently, and it looks like that inventory rework is a lot closer than I expected it to be. Like whenever they were first showing off the mocks and stuff of that, like the messaging made it sound like that was like a 2026 thing, but the progress tracker has that wrapping up soon, so I don't know. That could be a end of 2025 thing, I'm not sure. Engineering, yeah. I think at least PTR we'll see on engineering end of this year. They were talking about that on a recent SCL, right? About how they're waiting to get the Vulcan stuff off of the PTR so they can get engineering on the PTR. I don't see why that wouldn't happen this year. But in live might be a bit of a stretch. More social stuff? Org banks? Oh my gosh. Yeah, I would love to see that. They, what was it? That was last CitizenCon. They did the social universe segment where they were showing off the upcoming tools and UIs for organizations, and it seems to me like that UI work like that would be fairly low lift, but I guess it just hasn't made it to the top of the pile yet. Oh my gosh. Bots everywhere. I don't know how to freaking get rid of bots. I'm new here. I added them to my block list. I don't know if that does it. I'd love to give you admin perms to nuke that stuff. I don't know how to do that, Arc. My guys are working on some Wicklow ships, and we are bad at keeping track of who has what. I know. I'm laughing because, like, I play so many games where that's a problem. I play a lot of Star Citizen, but it's not the only game I play. I've dabbled in others, and I just feel like every game misses that fundamental thing, like the social aspect. Played a Season of Discovery a while back. No org banks. Played New World before that. No org banks. It's just like, I feel like I'm in a perpetual state of playing games and waiting on some kind of communal storage for the guild or the org or whatever you want to call it, depending on the game. Here we are, playing in 29.55, and we're still waiting on org banks. That checks out, right? Yeah. Ship list, yeah. Anything for the org, anything to like make us feel more connected. I think that's one of the reasons people just solo play so much. Is like the game does almost nothing at this stage to encourage or perpetuate those connections. Like, so many people are fine just playing without an org for that reason too. Like, what benefits do you get from joining an org? Almost nothing right now. I mean, obviously, those of us that are playing an org, we know, but from the perspective of somebody who doesn't have a friend group or no existing ties, like, what benefits are there to joining an org? I mean, I can understand why they would think almost nothing. Like, you don't even get chat. You don't even get org chat. You still have to be partied up. You would think at the rate of people being killed, they'd naturally group up more. Yeah, you would think. But I don't actually know what that rate looks like because I am in an org and I'm always playing with people. I'm never by myself, so I don't know. Huh, that's interesting to hear. I've only played one other MMO, Star Trek Online, and they had fleet banks, I think, from the beginning. I might be poorly calibrated. Yeah, JP, you're lucking out, man. That's not very common in MMOs. I mean, World of Warcraft eventually got them, but it took, what, three expansions till they got org banks. No, EVE Online obviously had them. But yeah, New World to this day doesn't have them. I don't know. There's been a lot of MMOs I have not played, so I could be poorly calibrated as well. One of us is JP. I don't know which one. Even being able to contact an org for help, security immersion, yeah, totally right. Like, if you're not in the same party right now, it's like you're not even in the same org at all without external coordination, Discord or whatever. Some orgs have like websites and that kind of thing to help out. European hardware enjoyer, hey man, thanks for joining us. So sorry if you've already covered this. What's your opinion on the recent drama with players blocking access to Grimhex, bannable griefing, or emergent gameplay? I am on the side of CIG on that one. I think I think where they went wrong on that blockade is just not allowing people to leave repeatedly. I think anytime that you're preventing someone from doing anything in the game, like that becomes a problem. Yeah, people got banned, JP. There was a group of people that were blockading Grimhex. I don't know the intimate details. I've only heard this third hand. So, European, if you have a different opinion, I would love to hear your reasoning because I've only heard this through the grapevine. I did not directly observe it. I haven't even read the Spectrum post. So, but my understanding is that a group of people decided to blockade Grimhex, and anybody trying to leave was getting destroyed. And so, what happened is the same people were trying to leave repeatedly, and they kept getting destroyed over and over, and they could not get out of Grimhex. I think that crosses the line into they got banned and then unbanned. That's unfortunate. I think they deserved the ban. Three days and then CIG overturned it. I think that's unfortunate. I think there needs to be a line drawn, and that line needs to be enforced. Otherwise, we're just going to end up with people playing that way. Grimhex thing is exactly why players need to be able to contact orgs and otherwise. Yeah. I mean, definitely, yeah, we need more connections between players in the verse, no doubt. If everybody on the server was in the same party, maybe it would have been better. I think they let people be loud about it to get the message out. Exactly where they stand on it. That's fair. As far as the emergent gameplay I mean, a temporary ban is punishment. That's the crime in this case. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, even if they let the full 3-day thing ride out, I think that would have sufficed. If it was overturned quickly, like, hey, we're going to give you a 3-day ban, and then an hour later overturn it, I mean, whatever. I don't know if that sends quite the right message, but no. Yeah, I'm not advocating for permaban for griefing, definitely. I mean, depending on how far you take it and how long. Grolo, I'm starting to think we're getting 0 features this year. I mean, I said that at the beginning of the year, bro. Whenever they called out the year of playability, I said, be careful what we ask for. Now, to be fair, like, at the end of 2024, things were pretty rough stability-wise, and so I understand and kind of welcome some work on stability, but at the same time, there's so many features that we're still waiting on that I was nervous to see a complete abandonment of chasing some of those prizes. But here we are. I mean, stability is a lot better. I don't know about you, but I can play the game and I can play 6 hours straight without encountering any major bug. I'm not saying I never had a major bug, but a lot of my game sessions I'm not. But at the same time, yeah. At one point we thought we were getting engineering at the end of last year. And here we are, we're closing in on the end of this year. We still don't have it, right? That's the bummer. That's the bummer aspect of it all. If CIG doesn't want griefing, they should implement in-game stuff to prevent it. Yeah, I agree with that, European. And I think that's on the roadmap, right? It's just not here yet. The whole security system, I mean, they're obviously chasing an Eve model with high sec, low sec, null sec type stuff, and they have intentions of making the NPC response stronger and station defense actually work, and so all this stuff is intended, but we're just not there yet. So, and again, I think with the Grimhex situation, like where they went wrong is not allowing a player to leave for an extended period of time. I think had they kept up that blockade, and once they had blown somebody up 2 or 3 times, then let them through, I think they've been fine. I think you cross the line whenever like one person is trying to play the game for hours and they can't play. That's all. I'm okay with griefing as well, as long as it's not too prevalent or it can be countered. Yeah, gotta be counterable. That's what I said at the beginning of the show. I don't know if you're here or you might have missed it, but I said that's the big problem right now, is that there's little counterplay for some of this stuff, right? I think that's when players get heated. There's a long way to go before we have the right kind of counterplay for some of that stuff. I'm quite happy to trade features for now for more stability. So you're on the camp of this year was a good year for you then, is what I'm hearing, JP. Would you want it to continue into next year? Or would you like to see some of the focus shift back to feature development in 2026? Or would you like the stability work to continue, and by the end of 2026, we're kind of in the same spot feature-wise, but I mean, this thing's basically ready to... I'd be curious what you think about that. I think you've expressed similar views in the past, which Starson is just not at this point. That's why I think the ban was fine. Yeah, definitely. I think it was appropriate. Yeah. Hopefully, if they uplift the ban quickly, but allowed the message to trickle around for people to get... Hopefully that's effective. I think long term... Like, here's my thinking. Like, I agree with whoever said they think the game needs to prevent the kind of gameplay that we don't want to see. I agree with that. But I also think that no system is perfect, and there will always be ways around the system. And, I mean, players are far more creative than programs. And so, no matter how sophisticated CIG gets with their anti-griefing systems, players are going to find a way around it. I mean, you're seeing this right now in Ashes of Creation. I mean, that game is also only an alpha, but they came up with a very complicated, convoluted anti-griefing system. And on the surface, like, everybody was thinking, yeah, I don't know how anybody's good at grief. And in the beginning, people were thinking it was far too draconian, right? That it was going to prevent any kind of PvP. But fast forward to today, and players have figured out all kinds of ways around the system. And they can basically grief whenever they want right now. And I think no matter what CIG does, in the long term, players are going to figure out ways around it, and you're always going to need a line in the sand that is enforced. And through GMs or whatever you want to call it, like, humans are going to have to be involved. And that's why I think appropriate responses to this kind of behavior is going to remain important no matter where it is. So I just hope that it's consistent and we all know where it is and it's clear and there's no doubts. That's where I want to see us end up. I'm catching up on the chat. I went on a little bit of rant there. I still want the same. You still want the same content cadence. Okay, I got you, Brohan. We're on slightly different mindsets there. I'll come back to that though. Once there's resources for it, then people should be able to control areas by any means. I totally agree with you there, European. I think that territory control is the long-term mechanism for the health of this game. Like, that's what's going to keep people interested in this game long-term. Territory control, building our bases, building up an area of space to be ours or owned by our organization, whatever. That's what's going to keep people in here long-term. Without that, we got nothing. So we're always going to have area denial, area control, all that kind of stuff. Spectrum literally caught fire. I normally go with the one in the Spectrum. Somebody had linked, one of my videos got shared on the other day. That was the first time I was in there in quite some time. And I posted one comment and somebody called me an idiot. So that's par for the course with Spectrum. Those are my 2 cents. Hey, I think they're a good 2 cents, European. They even left the CIG response thread sit for hours, but locked so people could read it. Good. True, no system will ever be perfect. Yep. On paper, everything sounds great. Practice, it's very complex. Yeah, exactly. It's a sad reality. Game masters would be sick to see again. I have been calling for that. Yes, we need GMs. Okay, I'm caught up on chat now. I could not agree more. Like, that's the ultimate solution. Think back to like peak MMOs. I don't know who here has played other MMOs outside of Star Citizen, but like when I kind of go in my mind to like the place where I enjoyed them the most, it was, you know, early 2000s. Up to 2010. Like that time period, late 90s through 2010 was like peak. And in the beginning, GMs were so prevalent. You'd see them in chat all the time. Or, you know, you'd be out in the world and something big going on, you'd freaking whisper a GM and poof, they'd materialize. But like, there was like a kind of a fear among the population. Like, okay, we got to keep things a little bit civil here, or there's going to be a GM up my butt, and I'm not going to like it. You know, I think that's healthy for the gameplay. Also, we need reputational consequences. I think that's a good tool, Rohan, for sure. I don't think it's a silver bullet, mostly because of alt accounts. Players are going to circumvent a lot of these kind of long-term penalty systems just through alts, unfortunately. So, while yes, I agree it needs to be in the game, but again, not a silver bullet. In Spain, we have a saying, I can't even say that, European hardware, which translates to something like, as soon as a law is made, the way of cheating it is also made with it. 100%. That's a great saying. I'll have to remember that. That sums it up. You see that in computer game cheating too. You know, as soon as a new anti-cheat ships, it's cracked within days, weeks. Doesn't take long. Can someone explain to this layman what a GM is? There's Shankers. Alter a good thing. What a GM is. It's rooted in tabletop role-playing games, actually, European hardware enjoyer. It stood for Game Master. In a tabletop gaming session, you would have one person who was running the game, and everybody else sitting around the table, they were players, but the person who was running the game, they were called the Game Master. When MMOs came along, that term persisted, but it was for moderators, basically, in the game who had the power to change things outside of what was normally possible for a player, right? So a game master could appear and unstuck you, or they could teleport you somewhere, or they could do whatever. But game masters also became a vehicle for maintaining order in a lot of MMOs. Yeah. So if you were being griefed by a player and it went above and beyond what would be normally acceptable PvP, a game master could get involved and remediate that situation. Yeah, exactly. Mostly Rust. I have not played a lot of Rust. I fired it up once. Sorry, dry mouth. Shankers is here. We were talking about your Idris earlier, Shankers. I don't know if you were here for it, but there was somebody in the chat here that thinks that you might have popped him. And we were talking about how next time I might help rally the response for it. So you're on notice, Shankers. I'm coming for you. Shankers here was, we were chatting earlier. He's offered to do some training. I mentioned I am not a great fighter pilot. I'm more of like the kind who wanders around the bridge asking what's going on, but Shankers here has offered to do some training, teach me how to be a better fighter pilot, so we'll see. He might end up training the person who comes for his next Armada blockade operation. But I think he'd be all right with that. Sir Fadius, really like your hot button format. You plan on continuing it? Yeah. 1v1 flight training in Gladius. Yeah, I look forward to it. This will be my first formal training. I do plan on continuing. So I turned my channel chat playlist, I turned it into a podcast. I plan on continuing the channel chats. The format's always been the same for those, so I do expect that we'll do more hot button type things, but I think that series in particular, I kind of maintained the same questions throughout that series. In the future, I would expect that the questions themselves will change, keep up with whatever's going on, but the format will remain largely the same. So yeah, I'm definitely going to continue looking for guests. And it's not just other content creators. Shankers is not a content creator. There was at least 2 or 3 people in that series that were not content creators. I'm happy to pull people from the channel, comments, audience, wherever. So if you are somebody who'd be interested in talking about something, DM me on Discord or jump into our Discord server so that you can DM me. I'd be more than happy to talk about it. A couple of our best episodes, I think, came from people volunteering through the comments, so keep it up. It's kind of brutal. I hope Pyro ends up resembling something like Rust in space. Yeah, I have not played a lot of Rust, but I know after CIG did like their vision for what 1.0 was going to look like, there was kind of an uproar among some people on Spectrum and elsewhere saying CIG's vision is becoming Rust in space, and they were kind of against it. But I like the way the 1.0 vision was laid out, so I guess you can say I'm pro Rust, I guess. I don't know. Lawless Wasteland. Cool. I think we need a little bit of both, I think we need the Lawless Wastelands in 1.0, and I think we need some places for new players to learn the ropes. Harsh at times, very time consuming, but no game has ever given me the adrenaline rush. Yeah, I believe it. I create the content with people, tears and fear. Yeah. I mean, yeah. It was interesting seeing the responses to the Shankers interview. There was people on both sides of the coin. Exactly, that's why I love SC. You get both, yeah. Yeah, I think you see that in like EVE Online too, which is why I think it's not a bad decision for CIG to model the way that PvP operates in that game. With security zones, and which is pretty common in survival sandboxes, which is really what Star Citizen is aiming to be. You see the same type of setup in old school RuneScape, which is enjoying quite the renaissance. Albion Online, same type of thing there. with their color gradient of danger. I think it's a good system. I was going to circle back to something, and now I forget what it was. Told somebody I was going to circle back. It'll come to me. I'd be curious to hear from you, Shankers. Why are alts a good thing? They are releasing an FPS game in the EVE universe, but this will not be the first. This will be the second FPS game they've released in the EVE universe. Do you remember Dust 514? That was the first one. But they released that on PlayStation, which was kind of an odd decision considering the entire EVE fan base was playing on PC at the time. But I think this one will be coming out for PC. Maybe also consoles, I'm not sure, but probably a better idea. But it sounds like it's going to be more than just an FPS. It sounds like this is also going to be some kind of a survival sandbox. So, I don't know. I know a couple people I've talked to who are in the beta, but I haven't gotten a whole lot of details from European. So far, I'm hearing it seems okay. Eve really likes the idea of a single universe with multiple games connected to that universe. They keep trying this format. I don't know that it's really seen much success yet, but they are certainly trying. Yeah, I think it's going well. I don't know. I can't really say it. In Dust 514, what they did was they spawned matches, but it connected to what was going on in EVE Online in some way. So I imagine this will be the same. Like, although they're calling it kind of a survival sandbox, so that tells me that you'll be playing perpetually. But in EVE Online, there is a planetary interaction system where players can fly to a planet, they can interact with the planet and control like how factories and stuff are laid out on the planet to produce resources from that planet. It's not like Star Citizen where you can actually go down and land on the planet. You're just kind of looking at the planet. You get like this UI that pops up and you just manage things on it. Somehow, my understanding is that this new FPS game will interact with that system in some way. I'm not sure exactly how, but you'll be playing on the planets in the EVE universe, and it'll affect the planetary interaction system in the EVE universe, if I'm not mistaken. Shanker says alts are good because they allow anonymity. I'm terrible at saying that word. They also help the evil side of the verse. Infiltrate PvE orgs and spy will be very, very useful when bases come online. I don't know if that's a good thing. I'm thinking about your response because there are many in EFOL unlawful orgs that have alts hidden in many of the lawful transport, cargo, and PvE white hat orgs. They call it metagaming. Some of the orgs have hidden alts. I understand that it exists. And some of the biggest orgs going back 6 to 8 years. For my side of the house, it's a good thing. For our victims, not so much. Yeah, I understand your perspective. My perspective is probably different. Yeah, I don't know that that's a good thing. I would like to, like, it seems too easy to me. You know what I mean? Like, it seems like it would be more of a challenge for you guys to infiltrate our organizations if you did not have this capability. Why should the challenging part be on the defensive side rather than the offensive side? That's my question to you. But I think the same thing for risk versus reward in PvP in general. You know, in Star Citizen today, I think there's way too much risk on the side of the defender. You know, like the person who wants to buy some cargo and move it across the system and sell it somewhere else to make some money. Like they bear all the risk. Like if something goes wrong, they're the ones facing financial loss. Whereas the pirates, no, I blame this on the state of the game. But long term, this needs a solution. Like I understand there's no economy or anything in the game right now that can possibly put risk on the pirate. But I think the pirates need to be anteing something up. Like right now, a pirate can just try to blow you up. And maybe you hired an escort or something. You did the smart thing. And you actually fend the pirate off and they die. The pirate still has lost nothing. A little bit of time. But if the defender had died, they'd be out millions of credits all the time, which was a lot more time than what the pirate spent, right? It goes against Death of a Spaceman. You talking about alts, I'm assuming, redacted? Yeah. That's what I'm saying, like these reputation systems or any kind of long-term penalty system is completely nullified by alt accounts. It's almost a full-time job to keep up fake personas and be active in so many orgs. I bet it is. Yeah, I bet it is. People aren't stupid. They won't give access to a guild bank to someone who hasn't been online in 7 years. So, of the infiltrators I know, they actually play 1 day a week. Some even hold leadership positions like a recruiter, etc. Yeah. Oh, I know. I used to read the EVE Online stories. I mean, they blew me away. You could see the same thing. We were just talking about this the other day. Like, the efforts people will go through. Have you all watched any of the hardcore WoW videos and drama? There was a, when Blizzard launched their version of hardcore WoW, there was this guild. I don't even know what server they were on, but they were like cream of the crop, right? They were the server first for pushing the whole way through to Nax Ramas and all that stuff on a hardcore server, right? So if you're doing Nax, that means they have progressed through every other raid tier. They have conquered every boss. They've done every encounter. They've done it all without ever dying. This is like a Herculean effort. Like I wouldn't even make it to level 60 on a hardcore server. And these guys are facing the in-game content. There was one guy who spent months and months and months embedding himself into this guild. He befriended them. He would hang out after raids playing like Among Us with them and all these little games. I mean, he had these people convinced he was in the inner crowd with these people. And he did it all so that whenever they were on one of the last fights in Naxxramas, he could intentionally wipe them and kill them all. That's the kind of yeah. That's the kind of stuff you're dealing with. Four Horsemen. Yeah, that's right, Eric. But if people are willing to do that in World of Warcraft, imagine what they'll be willing to do in Star Citizen. And then you see what they're willing to do in EVE Online. I mean, like that Four Horsemen thing I just talked about, that's nothing compared to what's going on in EVE Online. What occurred in EVE with infiltration is here in Star Citizen. It's been taught in EVE, and so much of the EVE community has moved into SC. You're looking at 50,000 or more EVE players. Yeah, absolutely. Why InfoSec's so important. 100%. We're going to have a whole dedicated section of our org devoted to that, and we're still not going to catch everything. And we're definitely not going to hand guild bank privileges to somebody that plays 1 day a week, Shankers. Because I know you're kind. You better be on every freaking day, multiple hours a day, if you want that kind of access in my guild. If you're willing to put in that much time, then I guess you deserve it. All the skill sets and bad habits of Eve will be here, and honestly, it's already here now. Yeah, yeah. I keep saying it's going to happen. European Hardware Enjoyer. That stands for Information Security. You do got to change your YT name. I would never know that you were Kenthus. Yeah, I keep saying this. Just wait until Goon Swarm is here full time, or Bob, or whatever. I don't even know. I know, like, test. They come from the test lines comes from Eve Online, right? They're already over here. That's just why the game is dormant and unfinished, so they will have the longevity. Once they plan to do it, obviously they will play 7 days a week, a month or more. Yeah. I have no doubts. Again, I go back to disagreeing with alts being a bad thing, or a good thing, though. I think you should have to work even harder. Oh my gosh, dude. I know. I hope we don't see that too. Talk about crossing lines. I think that voids the TOS. Terms of service. I certainly hope IRL doxing goes against the TOS. You see that stuff in like World of Warcraft too. I was friends with people who were pushing the arena ladders in that game, and they would get a hold of people's IP addresses and DOS them just to knock them out of a match. It's insane the lengths people will go to. I'll be a spy for us. I'll worm my way into their hearts with my. Yeah. Do that. Is that considered metagaming? That's a good question, Shankers. Is that considered metagaming? Oh my gosh. I don't know. But another place you can see this in all of its glory is the Ashes of Creation Discord server. You want to see some stuff, man. Crazy. Some IRL doxing going on over there. There you go, Kenthus. All the Care Bear orgs. I don't say that in a derogatory manner, by the way. I'm not afraid to admit I was a Care Bear in Eve. I spent most of my time in Eve just mining or transporting goods. I never really got involved in the political machinery or any of the endgame stuff. That was a totally different phase of my life. I really didn't do much PC gaming. Moonswarm joined SC in 2014. I heard they joined, but they pulled right back out, was my understanding. Org as FLJK. Huge crew from something awful. They mostly left and became Refundians in 2017. Oh, there you go. Makes sense. Kind of matches what I heard. But if SC, well, I say if, but I think when SC launches and you have something like what they described in 1.0, and you have the working systems and player-built space stations and all those goodies. I'd be surprised if Doom Swarm didn't return. Even the most hardcore. Yeah. I left SC in like 2020 for a year and came back. And Griefernet was here. I assumed Griefernet was Doom Swarm. I was shocked to learn they were totally independent. Yeah. My first encounter with Griefernet was, I don't know if you'd heard about this, but there was some, I forget the name of the organization. Some organization put on a big celebratory event where they took an 890 jump and they got all the streamers together and a bunch of other people, and they were going to do this really sophisticated tour of space. I was one of the guests. I don't remember. Space Tomato was there. A few other people, but it was pretty wild and sophisticated, like how they put this thing on. You got like an invitation on Discord that was like really professionally done. They told you where to meet them. You met them. They wouldn't tell you the takeoff point. They were really trying to be secure about a lot of the information, but they would tell you where to meet them. It was on the gas giant, and you would ride the one of those cars to one of those islands, and they had an Argo, like the Argo people carrier, parked there, and they checked your tickets somehow. I forget how. Like you would walk up to the guy in game, and then you would do something in Discord to verify that you had the ticket. And once they authorized you and approved you and that you had access to the voyage, they would load you into the Argo carrier, and then they transported you wherever the 890 was actually going to dock and pick everybody up. And you walked on board. They actually had like an intercom system on the ship. I think it might have been through Discord. I can't remember all the specifics, but it was just really crazy because they had like background music playing that everybody could hear, and they had like this announcer voice coming on and giving you updates about the status of the voyage, and it was really well done. And we took off. We made one jump. They stopped, and they were like figuring out like the next course. I don't know. They were working on the next part of the jump or whatever, and that's all the further we got. Griefernet showed up and blew the whole thing up. That was my first encounter with Griefernet. And I'm catching up on chat after that rant. Honestly, I'm probably going to be a Care Bear in SC. I enjoy the industrial stuff the most. It's fair. I only joined in March earlier this year. Well, you're still in your honeymoon phase, European. And I fell in love with the project. Yeah. The experience. Yes. That was at Shankers. That was the name of the event. Yeah. See you around Shankers. Yeah, it was insanely well put together, European. It was crazy. The experience was the perfect name for it. It was pretty wild. Kind of one of those moments where you kind of realize just how much was going to be possible in the game. Ark has the footage from it. There you go. Yeah, that was something else. I hope to see a lot more of that stuff in the future. They keep talking about people carrier gameplay, like transporting people. That is definitely the closest I've seen to that kind of gameplay, and it was all player run. There's so many things that CIG honestly could just completely defer and just let to players, and players would solve it. You know, because a lot of the fundamentals are already in the game. Like that was a really good example. I think about like the kind of player that will not be interested in flying spaceships and they just want to play planet side. once CIG gets enough in place that playing planet side can satisfy your gaming needs, and you don't have to travel between moons and planets and stations and all this stuff. Like, let the players handle the rest. Let them sell tickets to people who want to go from one place to another. I think some very minimal game systems can support that kind of stuff, but even if you don't, players will solve it. I'll fight when I need to, but I'm better on the ground than a ship. Yeah, you and me both. But I'm hoping that changes. I do really want to get better, but I'm in the same boat right now. And I'm not even that good in the ground, so that's not saying much. If I'm better on the ground than in space, then I'm a mess in space. You think CIG will region lock their shards? I don't see why they would. They're fatties. I don't know. I mean, maybe certain regions, like I could see them doing that in Asia. But like between Europe and America, I don't see why they would. If you got a reason to stay on the ground of a planet and not hop on a ship for days, the game will have largely succeeded. I completely agree. I talk about this quite a bit, European. Like, I think, even though a lot of people think of Star Citizen as a space and spaceship game, I think the ground play is so important for the long term. I think there is a whole bunch of players that CIG can pull into this project that is where they will want to spend all their time, on the ground, living on microtech, doing missions on microtech, and not even having to realize it's a space game. Yeah. If they can do that, to your point, and if they do have a reason to travel to Hurston, days, months down the road, if they could buy a ticket from another player to get them over there, that's the future. You do much Arena Commander, Grolo? Might help with ship combat? Yeah, redacted. I need to do more Arena Commander. I have a couple people now who have offered to give me some training. I'm going to take them up on it. I will improve. I just have not invested the time. And that's definitely not something that just falls in your lap. I'm just better with my gun in my hand than a flight stick in my hand. Do you have flight sticks, Kenthus? Or are you keyboard and mouse player? I'm primarily an FPS player. Yeah, me too. European. Legionnaire. That is going to be a cool ship. I'm really interested to see how they implement it, though. The whole boarding thing is, like, I love Star Citizen, but we all know there's a little bit of jank in the game right now. Like, when you look at things like when I park any ground vehicle on a ship, it just kind of perpetually bounces and shimmies around, you know? Or an Atlas, or really anything. Even in a hangar, you see that. Like, I pull up a Ursa out of my hangar and I pull it over here and I get out and it's just kind of doing this little dance. So with that kind of like physics shimmying, I keep wondering, like, how are they going to implement something like the Legionnaire attaching to another ship? I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how they pull it off. But what's interesting about the Legionnaire is I could imagine that whatever work they're doing right now for the command modules, which will be the process of like docking a smaller ship with a bigger ship and then taking over control of that bigger ship, they're going to need it for the Caterpillar is the older ship that's going to need that technology, but there's also a newer ship, another Drake ship. So maybe that work will be beneficial to something like the Legionnaire, right? Love the idea of boarding how many capitals. Yeah, I agree. I think that's the dream. I use a keyboard and mouse, been meaning to get sticks, but I'm absolutely not used to them. Used some back in the day for flight sims, but never an essay. It's game changing. But a lot of people play keyboard and mouse and they're fine with it. I know quite a few people that swear by stick and mouse too. Just a stick in the left, mouse in the right. I'm excited for the Paladin. Gonna love patrolling that thing. Paladin, that's gonna be a gunship, right? For sticks, check out what VKB has. I'm really happy with my VKBs. I hear nothing but good thing about the VKBs. I'm a Virpil guy, that's what I have, but I am jealous of the VKB Omni Throttle. That thing looks amazing. And I wish Virpil would make one. Not because I'm anti-VKB. They sound amazing, but like I want my stuff to match, and I've already invested in my Virpils, so I would like a matching throttle. I have a throttle, but it's not an Omni Throttle, I'll tell you that. The jittering, I think, has to do with floating points and whatnot. Yeah, I don't know what it has to do with. I'm not a client guy. I'm a back-end guy, so whenever you start talking about the 3D stuff on the front end, like, I don't know what the hell's going on. Since the 3D coordinate system scale is so massive, yeah, I believe it. I'll take your word for it. I've had a boarding experience in the past, and it was insanely fun. We stole an abandoned Idris. We found a solo pilot and let him intrude us. When he went and searched for him, I got the ship. I have an Omni Throttle, works awesome, and it's very intuitive. Virpil is real expensive, though. Yeah, they are. That's cool you have an Omni Throttle. I'm jealous. Yeah. The boarding gameplay, I could not agree more. It's exciting. We were, I mentioned earlier in a show that somebody was talking about how they defeated an Idris that was trying to lock them down or bully him or something. We had a similar situation. We were doing a the Hathor event one day, and while we were on the ground, there was a Idris. It was either an Idris or a Polaris in the sky, and they sent a threat. They were demanding some amount of money to basically let us off the hook for something. And we responded like, no way. Like, we'll fight you. And so we kept our operation going on the ground while our people in the ship went to battle with this other opponent. It turns out they were like a one-person crewed ship or something like that, but they called him backup. And that's what I was talking about. We ended up in this situation where we were 1v3. We were in an Idris, and we were up against two other Idrises and a Polaris. Now, thankfully, we were in an Idris M. The other Idrises were normal Idrises, and Polaris was a Polaris, but they were all only crewed by one or two people. And we had a fully crewed Idris M, and we had an excellent pilot, and we ended up fending all three of them off, chasing them off to seek repairs, and they eventually gave up. But during the course of that battle, we did have two fighters on board in our hangar on the Idris. We scrambled both of them, and they knocked out. With support from our Idris, we knocked open the front bay of one of the opposing Idrises, and our people boarded the Idris, and we got some awesome footage from that. They boarded the Idris, found the pilot, took the pilot out, activated the self-destruct on the Idris. It was amazing. I mean, that's the kind of thing that's going to make battles in space so epic. And it's why I interviewed Shankers, and it's why I am first time catching me live. Thank you so much for catching me live, the candidate. Really tickled with how many people showed up tonight. But that's exactly why I am so gung-ho and adamant about the multi-crew in this game. You know, I spend a lot of time talking about the dangers to multi-crew and what may de-incentivize multi-crew gameplay. Not because I'm an antagonist or I'm a defeatist or I think CIG is a bunch of buffoons or anything like that. It's just, it's important to me. That is the part of the game that excites me most, and I want to see it live up to its full potential. So I keep harping on the subject. I'm a back-end guy too, if you know what I mean. Yeah, okay. Kennedy, where are you tuning in from? I'd love to hear. That's the dream right there. It was. It was so awesome. I mean, it's one of the reasons we were able to 1v3 them, because they didn't have enough crew to fend us off. You know, that's one of the advantages we have in multi-crew versus not multi-crew right now, is we can spare the crew to go over and do that. But their crew is all tied up operating the ship. They can't afford to fend us off. So that's one place where multi-crew still has an advantage today. Multi-crew is everything. It makes the game special. I completely agree. Like, if we're not careful and we de-incentivize it too much and we end up in a place where people just fly more ships because that's more hit points for the fleet, more total firepower, like that, it would be a massive loss. We put so much effort. I mean, not we, but I mean, we did, right? We invested so that CIG could put so much effort into doing these ships on a grand scale, full 3D interiors, the whole 9 yards. Like, what we don't want to end up with is another EVO Online where it's just one person, one ship. I should really get into the org myself, but I play kind of casual right now. Redacted. It says comment redacted. I don't know if that's your name or what, but if you are just kind of trying everything and think you might like an org, I know an org that is recruiting. We love casual people. We got a bunch of them. Hop on in, man. Discord.gg/unhinged. Super easy to get in. Arcadia in the chat is one of our officers. He'd be happy to help get you set up. Apologize. You do not apologize, Eric. Don't even say that. But yeah, person who's saying they might like an org, we do operations on Saturdays, newcomer friendly. We got people flying every night, so if you just want, you don't even have to fly with anybody, you can just chat about stuff, it's fun. The Canada, the US, the worst state filled with crazy people. I have a guess on what state that might be, but I'm not going to say it. Oh, comment redacted is the in-game name? That's funny. Well, if nothing else, I will send you a friend request. I'm writing the name down so I don't forget it. There you go. Got it. Not to be the brown noser in chat, but I can say you're hands down my favorite. As soon as I saw you live, I had to join in the fun. Man, thanks. It means a lot. I still feel like a noob when it comes to being a content creator. I'm coming up on the 1-year anniversary of my channel. Sometime in October, so it's coming up fast. I wanted to do something special for the 1-year anniversary. I don't know what yet. If you have any ideas, let me know. I'll hop into the Discord. Awesome. We will see you there. Yeah. Whenever you're joining, it'll pop up and say what game you're interested in. Just pick Star Citizen, and you'll see SC Chat. That's where we all gab. You would probably be right. I would not have guessed Florida. I don't have the Discord linked. Well, here, I'll put a link in chat here. I'm still a noob with this live stuff. I don't even know where to put links. But there's a link to our Discord. Oh, it is Florida. Okay, I would not have guessed. Got a hot take for the genre? Board fan Garude? You asked me if I have a hot take for what genre? For MMOs? Max 8, I'll add you. I'm just writing people's names down so I don't forget. Adding the underscore for comment redacted. You're famous from the Florida Man thing. Board fan. I don't know if I have a hot take. I have. I mean, probably I do. But I did a whole series. I don't know if you watched any of the series. I did a whole series called Hot Buttons and MMOs. I interviewed, I don't know, 7, 8, 9 people, and every one of them we kind of tackled kind of the like the pervasive hot button issues that just keep coming up over and over again on all the forums and every public discourse that you can find, which are things like, you know, group versus solo play. You always have the people who are in there wanting everything to be accessible to the solo player. You always have the people who want hard challenges that force people to group up and play together. PvP versus PvE, that's a raging debate. You always have the people who never want to be bothered by PvP. You always have the people who want realistic PvP encounters, things like that. Monetization was another thing we talked about with all the guests. But yeah, just the real hot button issues, and especially in Star Citizen, but in all games, like a lot of the stuff transcends Star Citizen. It's everything. Yeah. Well, thanks for putting them in a playlist, man. It's I guess one hot take I have maybe is that I wish all MMOs would go back to subscriptions. A lot of people disagree with me on that. Everybody seems to love, or everybody seems to desire not having to pay a sub to play an MMO. But I think that works against us as players. I think that subscriptions are the only way to align developer interest with our interest. And I understand that means, like, not everybody will be able to play MMO, but I don't care. Yeah. Well, most people here seem to agree. That is not pervasive, though. Most people disagree with me on that. But, yeah, I don't even know what it would take. The monetization and the amount of money that these developers make on microtransactions has just gotten so far out of control, and that it would take a pretty hefty subscription to offset that at this point. But, you know, the way I see it, I pay $20 a month for Netflix, and I never even watch Netflix. I pay it just to have it. So what should I be willing to pay for something that I'm engaged in multiple hours every night? Probably more than $20. That's where I stand. Those conversations are great to have on a second monitor while you cargo. Oh, thanks, European. I appreciate it. I missed a serious question from Eric. Do you think SC is going to have any sort of excessive vertical progression, or do you think the majority of it will be horizontal with trade offs for various stat perks? I hope like hell it's horizontal. I am so weary of vertical progression MMOs because they all end the same. Like, the problem with vertical progression, like, vertical progression works really well for a short period of time. I have never seen a game implement vertical progression in a way that works for an extended period of time. I mean, just look at World of Warcraft, right? Like, you know there's something wrong whenever you have to squish your stats and squish your levels. Like they just kept going and the game popularity was there, so right? And eventually your players are hitting for millions of damage, and you're like level 150, and your stats are in the tens of thousands, and pretty soon everything's just ridiculous. And then you got to be like, okay, we need to squish this stuff. We just need to divide everything by 10,000. Like, that's insane to me. And that's just one aspect of vertical progression. Like the constant resets. I mean, vertical progression games have gotten to the point where they just feel like seasonal games to me, right? Like I'm not a big fan of seasonal games like Diablo, Path of Exile. Those games are fun, but to me, like I'm starting over every 3 months or whatever the time limit is. I mean, that's just grates on me after a while. Like I like MMOs because I like having a character that I can invest in over the long haul. And in a game like World of Warcraft, where you got a new expansion or a new raid tier coming out every month or 2 months or whatever it is, like yeah, power creep exactly. You never feel like your investments in that character reward you for any length of time. And so I am so hopeful that CIG never implements that. I got into New World for a while, and New World in the beginning seemed like it was going to be focused on horizontal progression. And then out of nowhere, they come out and they're like, "Hey, we're going to bump the level cap by 5. We're increasing the gear score, and then here we go again." Right? Like I never want to see that in Star Citizen. And it's my hope that they maintain horizontal forever. And there's plenty of games that have done it. Right? I don't think that vertical is the only recipe that works. Old school RuneScape, horizontal. Albion Online, I've never played it, but from what I understand, it's horizontal. EVE Online, horizontal. Guild Wars 2, my understanding is that's horizontal. I don't know. ESO, mostly horizontal, a little bit of both. Obviously, it has the M-game point system, which throws things off a little bit, but from the gearing and everything, at least when I was there, that was all horizontal. So, agree, disagree. Comment redacted was sub to Concierge for quite a while. Yeah, I'm still sub to Star Citizen. I don't even know why. I get like new ships whenever they first come out or something. I just do it because I want to express my willingness to do it. So I just keep paying my sub. But I don't buy armors. I don't buy any of the crap they put. I do buy ships, obviously. But when it comes to like their weapon and cosmetic store, I buy nothing. I will subscribe. And just because that's the only way to vote, right? The only way to vote is with our wallets. So I vote with my wallet on how I want to spend my money and how I want to incentivize them. Unfortunately, very much not normalized these days. You're talking about the subscription in European. Yeah, I agree. If the sub price, the base price is low, it shouldn't be a problem. Yeah. Tiers, yeah, that's also an option. I agree with the sub model 100%. Without them, the funding comes from things that most of us don't want. 1,000 currencies, paid cosmetics and services. Yeah, exactly, man. 100%. DLCs are close enough to subs these days? Maybe, but I hope that we don't see DLCs in Star Citizen. But yeah, I mean, that's a good analogy. I don't know. I think that the subs really remove. I don't think the subs really remove the microtransactions appeal for them. No, I agree. That's what I said. For Rosarius is like I don't know how big the sub would have to get to completely offset the earnings of microtransactions because it's so lucrative. But they're never going to do it as long as we keep buying the microtransactions, which is why I won't buy them. Again, I have bought ships in Star Citizen, no doubt, but I will not go shopping on their armor store. I will pay their sub, even though it seems kind of silly to pay it. I will still pay it just because that's my vote. The only thing that is going to convince them, Carzarius, not to do the microtransactions is for us not to buy them. So. But if we demanded a sub and we got some of what might be offered in a microtransaction format through a sub, maybe, I don't know. I'm not a finance guy. Wish I was. Most people are okay with MTX, so it's hard to take them seriously. I know. With how much some charge. Like, well, as a sub, but also a microtransaction. Yeah, I know. I know. It's terrible. WoW charges $15 a month and then sells mounts and everything else. Like, But WoW has been charging $15 a month since 2004. It's never gone up. So in a way, if you take inflation into account, the price of a WoW subscription has gone down over the life of the project. And they haven't cared because they've done microtransactions and everything else. But yeah, I see you in the chat, Redacted. Nice. Thanks for joining me. I don't know. That's why I say, like, what would a sub have to be to offset microtransactions? I don't know what the price would be. Is it $40 a month? Is it $50 a month? I have no idea. But I'd rather have that. Whatever that price is, I'd rather have that. I was trying to learn DCS, but the manual was nearly 400 pages. What is vertical and horizontal progression? Comment redacted. Vertical horizontal progression. Vertical progression is a game like World of Warcraft, Final Fantasy. These are all vertical progression games where the reason to keep playing is that the ceiling on character power keeps increasing. Like every time World of Warcraft comes up with a new raid tier, there's new, more powerful gear to get. Every time they come up with an expansion, the level cap raises. You have to do more quests, increase your character level because that increases your power. And then once you get to the new max level, there's new gear and there's new dungeons, right? And so you keep playing because the ceiling continues to rise. You're always chasing that carrot on a stick. Horizontal progression game, there is a fixed ceiling that caps the power of your character. And it really doesn't matter how much you play, you can never exceed that ceiling. So you might ask, what's the incentive to keep playing in a game like that? And they call it horizontal because instead of increasing the power of your character this way, you increase it this way. You're not really increasing your power, but what you're doing is you're increasing your options, your flexibility, that kind of stuff. Like maybe, Star Citizen is a really good example, right? Where they have all these different ships. And maybe a new player starts out with some little thing, and then as they play the game, they keep acquiring new vessels through different means, so they keep increasing the size of their armada, or maybe it's your base, you keep pouring resources into your base and you keep making your base better and better in some way, or whatever. Like EVE Online is another good example of a horizontal progression game. You're not really advancing the power of your character through stats, you're increasing the power of your character through the number of assets that you've acquired. So that's the difference. Yeah. Hopefully I explained that well. Somebody in the comments can correct me if I got wrong on that thing. Doesn't inherently, but doesn't mean we can't have a game with a sub and no MTC. Yeah, I wish we could have a game with a sub and no MTC. I'm hoping we get to the point where we see linear and vertical, but also negative via death of a spaceman and future systems that feed back into the economy. The Canada, you want vertical systems in Star Citizen? I'd like to hear what kind of a vertical system you want. On the other hand, I can't find anything to do in horizontal progression games. Really, Boardfin? What horizontal progression games have you played? I would be curious. Do the tiered ships and gear not imply vertical progression? Rosarius, no. Not in my mind. You have the same thing in EVE Online, right? Where there's tiers of ships in EVE. And there will be in Star Citizen 2. Just because you're a horizontal game does not mean there's not a power curve. There's still progression in horizontal games, but it's capped and it does not increase over time. So if Star Citizen is truly a horizontal progression game, 1.0 launches and all the tiers are there. Right? You have tier 1 through tier 5 or whatever it is at the time the game launches. And then over time, they don't add tier 6. If they continue that, right, then you're creeping into vertical progression territory. And also keep in mind that vertical versus horizontal is not it's not binary. It's not like one or the other. This is a gradient thing. A lot of these games, sit somewhere in between horizontal and vertical. Like they're not all one way or the other. Like I mentioned, ESO, that was a good example where the gearing in ESO was horizontal, but they also had this stat system where like you basically leveled up forever, and there was like diminishing returns, but you could continue getting like these really small incremental power bumps. So elements of horizontal, elements of vertical in that game, and I think a lot of games fall into that category. But as long as Star Citizen does not continue to raise the ceiling over time, that's my primary hope. What I don't want is if I invest a ton in my Mercury Star Runner today, you know, I sink all my blood, sweat, and tears into getting this thing to tier 5, and then I go on a year-long vacation, and I come back, and tier 10 is now the latest. You know what I mean? And I fly my MSR out and I get obliterated by people. That is not the game I want. I hope that after my 1-year vacation, I come back and my tier 5 MSR still kicks ass. That's the game I want. A robust reputation system would enrich SC greatly. I agree. I think the positive reputation will have a bigger impact than negative reputation. And again, like, you might think that a reputation system is a form of vertical progression, but again, as long as the ceiling does not increase forever, I would say it fits perfectly within a horizontal progression game. The thing with WoW's microtransactions is that most of it is cosmetics, and they do offer special things in front loading X months of sub. They never had a pay for power situation, which is the glaring problem in freemium games today. I stopped playing Lost Ark because of the pay for power junk. It was a great game. I agree with what you're saying, Home. However, I would rather play a game without cosmetics as well. Because one of the things I miss from the early days of MMOs is looking at somebody and understanding what they went through to look the way they do. I miss that so much. And some games just completely obliterate the immersion of the game by going so far overboard. Like New World's a good example where somebody can be equipping a round shield and put like a kite shield or a tower shield cosmetic on it. It's just stupid stuff. Like, yeah, dish plate helmets. There's another one. Anyway, we need to start a movement that actually gets people to vote with their wallet and not buy MTX. I completely agree, board fan. That's the only way we're going to dethrone MTX. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I don't know. I don't know how to start a movement, but somebody should. Maybe I'll try. I vote for myself. I do it for myself. I encourage you all to do the same. Go pick up the sub if you can afford it, and then never look at the armor shop. I'll accept paid cosmetics, but I will not accept pay for power. It ruins games. Yeah. I can understand that perspective, but I don't even want pay for cosmetics. Just have sub tiers as high as 30, all optional. Yeah. I think Star Citizen is so well positioned to do a tiered subscription model like that. There's so many things they could give players to incentivize you paying more for your subscription compared with some other games. Like, I think about living amenities, right? Like, I've often wished that I had a penthouse apartment suite in Microtech, or at the top of one of those towers in Area 18, with like my own private hangar. That would be amazing, and like more immersion and like, and it's not pay for power, right? Like if you bundled that into a premium subscription tier, that would be perfect. Like, it's a way of enhancing your gameplay without impacting anybody else. Like if I own a penthouse suite in Microtech with a private hangar, that doesn't affect anybody. It doesn't hide my gear. You can still look at me and see what I've gone through to look the way that I look. But when you see me flying in my own private hangar, well, you know I'm back in the game at a higher level. I think that's acceptable. There are some in-game transactions that I would be okay with, and I did a whole video on this with some of the like brainstorming ideas I had. And one of the things that comes to mind for me is advertisements. I think paying IRL money for in-game advertisements would be acceptable because I think that it would increase. It's another thing that would increase immersion, and it would not break immersion, right? Like it wouldn't. Like cosmetics can be immersion breaking because somebody looks like a badass who's never played the game. Like that's immersion breaking. Like to me, it looks like they've been through the 9 hells, but they just stepped foot off the noob plane and just swiped a credit card. Now they look better than me. Like that sucks. But somebody paying to advertise their org on a billboard in Area 18, that actually increases my immersion. You know what I mean? I'm seeing signage for other things that players are doing. I don't care that they gave CIG money for that. Or maybe some guy who's setting up a garage on a dusty road on Hurston. He wants to advertise his garage service to somebody, and he puts a big billboard in Lorville. Like, that kind of stuff would be awesome. I think that would be a cool way for CIG to go above subscription fees without breaking our immersion. Catching up on chat here. Corsaria says, I'm curious what they see in the metrics, though. I've bought armor and weapons, but I also inevitably melt them to put towards a new ship when I need the full price CVU. Yeah. They might see the sub as you wanting all the knickknacks. Exactly. Like, how do they see it? They don't know. I mean, that's what I mean. Like, we can only vote with our wallets. If we're spending money on the microtransactions, they're going to assume we want the microtransactions. They can't draw any other conclusion. So we're reinforcing the microtransactions. We're just going to keep getting them as long as we keep buying them. There's so much they can monetize that isn't breaking the balance of the game, so hopefully they come around to being able to include that soon. Yeah, I agree, Ironwork. Advertising was just one of my ideas. I have a few others. I already mentioned the like the penthouse apartment thing. You know, they could do concierge programs. You know, that maybe that's more of a base level thing, but access to concierge lounges at the space ports. You know, just a cool place to go hang out. Yeah, I'd buy a penthouse, Ironmore, totally. With your own private hangar. You know what I mean? Decorate that thing? Holy hell, that'd be awesome. What city would you buy a penthouse in? That's the question. I'd also buy a subscription to a concierge lounge in the spaceports. You could even make it an actual quality of life thing, right? Like the concierge lounges have free coffee bars and snack things where you can fill up your vitals before you head out. You know, you don't have to pay the 5 credits at the hot dog stand or whatever. And once they introduce the hygiene meter, maybe the concierge food doesn't even give you indigestion. In which case, I would subscribe Kenthis to the concierge service. Orison. I've always loved the view, either that or Terra, depending on the vibe. Yeah, I don't know much about Terra. Orison's a really good pick, though. That's a place I have not spent a whole lot of time. I try to, every time they do like the soft wipes and you have to pick your starting location, I try to bounce around, like change my view. I haven't picked Orison in a long while, but I did just change this last patch as they added the weapon shop to Hurston, so I started on Hurston for the first time forever in this last patch. Also Orson for my penthouse any day. All right, we got a couple Orson lovers. I guess I'm just not seeing the notable difference between a premium sub and MTX. You get a penthouse because you spent 500 on it versus paying 50 a month. Is that different in this essence? I think so. I mean, you have a point in that buy enjoyer. Sorry, I'm not following that. You have a point on that, Corsarius. So maybe a better way of saying it is that we just have to be careful on what microtransactions are in the game. But I think maybe one of the difference between a $500 penthouse or a $50 a month penthouse is that it's a little more predictable. I think, again, I'm not a finance expert here, but maybe it would make sense to me that one of the reasons that you want a large microtransaction store is that you can appeal to the maximum number of people as possible, right? People have a ton of different budgets and a ton of different interests. So you need all kinds of different cosmetics to rope in as many spenders as you can. And the larger your storefront, the more predictable your revenue stream becomes, would be my guess. Again, I'm not an expert, so if anybody is an expert, feel free to correct me. But subscriptions would accomplish the same kind of stability. Right. So like if we're locking down, or we want to lock down how many things they can possibly sell, I would think that one of the risks would be reduced predictability in their income. But you can overcome that with a subscription. If somebody subscribes to a penthouse, they're going to be more likely to pay for that penthouse the next month. But whenever people are spending one time for their penthouse, maybe that's less predictable. I don't know. That would be my guess. But if they wanted to sell a $500 penthouse, one-time fee, I would not be opposed to that. So to your point, maybe that says we just have to be really careful with what we're selling. And armor cosmetics is not one of the things we want. Ironmore says not an expert, but I've always felt that subscriptions are less appealing. Maybe it's just the way I like to use my money in general. I hear you. I don't know if you were here when we started this discussion, Ironmore, but somebody asked if I had a hot take on MMOs. I said one of my hot takes is I would rather have subs than microtransactions. I know a lot of people disagree with me, but the reason I say that is because I think it's the only way to align developer interest with player interest. If we are paying a sub, the developer wants to do everything they can to keep us paying the sub, which means the game has to be good. If we are funding the game through microtransactions, then the developer is incentivized to sell us more microtransactions. You know what I mean? It's a really subtle difference, but it changes the priorities of the company. And I know because I've been at companies. The closest parallel in an industry I worked in was I worked in media. I've never worked at a game company, to be clear, but I did work for media companies. And I saw both models. I saw the subscription model at a media company, and I saw the ad model. And I know it's slightly different, but in publications that are funded by advertisements, the user experience ends up being complete shit. Right? You go to like wired.com and like your browser explodes with advertisements. Like you have to like click all these buttons to like close all this stuff down so you can actually read the article. Now you go to like New York Times, which is subscription funded, and you log in. That's the only annoyance. And you get a nice clean article to read. You don't get all that junk. It's the same thing, right? Like in video gaming. That's how I see it. From a studio perspective, subscriptions make a whole lot more sense, but I don't really like the idea of locking the entire game behind a subscription. It stopped me from playing WoW when I was younger, for example. Yes, I'm not young. Yeah, I get that. I totally do. I'm looking at this purely from a how do we get developers to build us the best products they can. That's the only way I'm looking at this. Rosarius is in the same boat, kept him out of WoW. Well, to be fair, you guys did ask me for a hot take. That's my hot take. And it could have a lot to do with my age, or our age differences. When WoW came along, I was already, that was 2004? I was already mid-20s when WoW came along, so I could already afford the sub. There's never been a point where an MMO was available that I could not afford to pay the sub for myself. Because when I was young, I was playing on like Ataris and first generation Nintendos. we didn't have MMOs. So maybe if I was younger, I'd be seeing things your way. I wish. For what it's worth, I wish I was younger. So I'm jealous. Sly says, but you have a choice not to buy microtransactions and you can still play. With subs, you're forced to pay to play, which will stop a lot of players. That's one way to look at it, Sly. However, that's looking at it from an individual, right? These games need funded. You can't run a game like Star Citizen for free. So, let's just say it costs $1 million a month to run the hardware required to run a Star Citizen universe. I don't know what it is. I'm just pulling a number out my butt. But let's just say it's $1 million. Like, that $1 million has to come from somewhere. Either the entire player base is paying a sub, or you have to roll out a microtransaction system in which your psychiatrists and psychologists figure out a way to get enough of the people to spend enough to compensate for the rest. So you may think you're playing for free, and maybe you are, but somebody else is paying for you to pay. Somebody else is paying for you to play. That makes sense? We had Street. Yeah. Man, one of my big games growing up were like Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter. That was like whenever I was in my teen years. Those were like the big arcade games I was playing. I would rather see that entry as a fixed amount, not a fee, but like it is now, $40 to $60 or something. That way you get a lot of population in the game and you can still monetize a lot of other things, not to mention that a squadron is a success. Stabilization as well, yeah. I understand where you're coming from, I really do. But like that entry fee of $45 to $60, that's not going to pay to run the servers. Like, where does that money come from? Where does the server money come from is the question. Because you got to be paying for those every second of every day. This is why we need a double dog hot suit. Who wouldn't buy that? I would not buy a double dog hot dog suit home. The thing is, MTX only works if they can successfully prey on whales, players who have cash to burn and love to burn. So some players are being taken advantage of, so you can play for free. That's exactly what I was trying to say, board fan. Yeah, so microtransactions is the way then. Let the impulsive people pay. I can understand your perspective, Sly, but it's less sustainable in the long run. Time to walk Taco Bell. Enjoy the tacos. In essence, I think that's a good thing, not a bad thing, though. Lots of people who are paying subsidize the population who can't afford to. I would agree that it would be good if, again, you can limit the damage of the microtransactions. I don't want to play a game where people are buying armor. I don't want to play a game where people are buying cosmetics. Like, if they could subsist off things like advertisements and apartments and that kind of stuff, I'm not going to disagree with you. The problem is that once you begin funding your game with microtransactions, I have not seen a game yet that can limit the damage that they do. It just seems to me like the incentive for the company is always to take it to the maximum profit extreme. And eventually, it damages the game. Can anybody who believes this give me an example of a game that was not ruined by microtransactions? And I know we're all going to have different definitions of ruin. So my definition is like, well, you already know what my definition is. Like, it eventually breaks the immersion of the game. Because some guy over there is dressed up in a freaking laser suit that makes him look like the second coming of Darth Vader, and he never even played the game. In a big way, the cosmetics are the game. Wait, are you against people buying paints? Yeah. I am against people buying paints. Again, this might go back to my age, but in my heyday of MMOs, I remember admiring and looking up to the person standing on the mailbox in Org who was in their tier 3 armor. And knowing that they were in a badass raid guild and they put a ton of work into looking that way. That's what I miss. That's one of the many things I miss from the heyday of MMOs. Now, I look at somebody and they're dressed to the nines in something way cooler than I can earn in the game. And it's very likely that I swiped a credit card to look that way. There's no effort associated with the attire, right? That's what I miss. Held ever run the same model that Star Citizen runs pretty much. Different genre though. But they are not predatory at all with their monetization. It's refreshing. Immersion economy, goals, and social all suffer from selling cosmetics on an RMT store. I completely agree, board fan. That's what I'm trying to say. You might have said it a little better than I do. Damn, I think special paints and armor should come from playing the game, not paying the game. 100%. That's where I'm at. I still think you can have paid cosmetics and effort-bound cosmetics. If you know the game, you know the game. You know that Wicklow Polaris looks like. Yeah, that's a fair perspective. I can't say that you're wrong, Corsarius. All I can say is that I think differently. Guardian Exiles, they had great customizations for build and furniture that didn't wreck the game. That is a place that I would be okay with cosmetics, Sly. And I've already kind of hinted at that, right? Like, I'm okay with you buying a penthouse suite. I would be okay with you buying paintings for your penthouse suite. I would be okay with you buying couches and furniture for your penthouse suite. I'm okay with that. Because when we're out in the field, like, that doesn't impact me at all. And this is why it's so subjective. Like, there's no objectivity here. It's all subjective. Like, every one of us is going to think about differently about this, and none of us are really right or wrong. To be fair, you're got it harder talking to a stream while I'm typing. On the opposite side of things, what if your tier 3 armor looks terrible, but it's the best armor for you, so you're just kind of stuck in it, and you want to retain your power? Tough. That's my response to that, Eric. Tough. Look like shit then. Once again, full respect for your point of view, just bouncing ideas. Yeah, same here, man. Again, I'm not going to say you're wrong. I don't think there is a right or wrong here. Doesn't that kind of detract from someone's immersion or power fantasy? Maybe. I don't know. I think if you're that concerned about it, then we're tier 2. Usually if you're min-maxing, you end up not looking the best. I think Star Citizen is one of the few games where armor has the same stats no matter the looks. True Iron War. That's a whole different animal of a discussion, but I agree. It's one of the reasons I'm excited for Star Citizen, is that it breaks away from some of these limitations in these games that do have these more complex systems because, yeah, to your point, it should be less of a problem here. No dev is going to make Epic Armor look like crap. We hope. We hope redacted. But Eric has a point. In Vanilla WoW, some of the most powerful suits of armor did look like shit. That's a dev problem. Reach out to the devs, tell them to fix it. I use a specific armor in Helldivers for the looks, though. There you go. Right? So, I think the power fantasy breaks the immersion. Good point. WoW has done it plenty of times. Trust me. Yeah, I got your back there. I know they did. But again, like, I remember wearing armor that I thought looked like crap in vanilla. Just because it was the best. Whatever. I mean, it made it feel that much better when I got the next thing that looked better. You know what I mean? That's another one of those like vertical progression things. How can you expect every suit of armor you get to look better than the last? Like eventually you run into diminishing returns there, right? Like, I don't know. Eventually you kind of have to get into something worse. I don't even know. I'm going back and catching some of the chat messages I missed here, so I might read some old messages and respond. But Kozaria said, I have a Polaris, well, a Perseus actually. So the Polaris is a loner. But I'm still buying other ships, not because they are better, but because they are cool and I want them. I do too, man. Yeah, I do too. I mean, I believe in the project and I want to fund the project. We're in kind of a different phase here. This is definitely not it's not the traditional like microtransactions. But I'm also in the camp that believes they should stop ship sales at 1.0. I think once the game launches, there should be no more ship sales. That was just a perk for backing the game. In an orc fight, I'd rather see the two orcs have different armors than the same one. If we talk about immersion, I agree with that. I'm hoping they give us the ability to do decals, like orc decals and that kind of stuff. Like, they have talked about that on past streams, like, for ships too. The ability to put, like, your org's logo on your ship, on your armor, cloaks, that kind of stuff. They should definitely stop ship sales at one point. Yeah, I think so too. Not everybody agrees, but I think it's going to be important for the long-term health of the game. I think some people think they might go kind of hybrid. They'll still do concepts or something. I wish they wouldn't. I really wish they wouldn't. I wish they would come up with alternative means of funding like we're talking about here tonight. My main thought regarding Star Citizen's funding is they are using the funding to make the game, not to line someone's pockets exclusively. So it's a lot different from the gacha style of them. Yeah, I agree, Ironware. That's why I'm willing to spend big on the ships, and I have spent big. I got quite a few dollars invested in this project. Not as much as some, but a significant amount. I'm doing my part. I'm standing. What is it? I'm holding the line. What do you think about them selling blueprints instead if they move away from ships? I think that if they sell concepts or starters or whatever, like if they have to sell something, a blueprint would be better. I've actually offered that up as an improved solution because the problem with buying a ship is that it avoids the crafting and the economy system. That's why I don't like ship sales. If you sell a blueprint, the construction of things still has to go through the economy, and I would be more okay with that. I have a feeling they won't stop selling ships, though. I feel like they are primed to continue them, honestly. I mean, it's the same thing with getting a company to stop trying to sell, or trying to get a company to stop selling microtransactions. Like, how does a company like that say no to X million dollars rolling in? I'd have a hard time, too. Didn't they say they were going to stop ship sales 1.0? I don't know. Comment redacted. I don't know. I have not been here since the beginning. I have not heard them say that since I've been here, but that doesn't mean they didn't say it before. But the whole blueprint and crafting thing, the base ships won't be upgraded to top tier. The crafted ones will be. Yeah. I just wish that everything went through the crafting system, right? Like, this is where I think EVO Online does it well. Like, EVO Online, you can buy ships with real world money. You just have to go through the Plex system. And by going through the Plex system, you're actually just converting USD to in-game currency, and then you're buying the ship with in-game currency. So you never avoid the economy, you never avoid the crafting system. I think that is a superior solution. I saw one guy own 3 javelins, and all I'm thinking is that guy is going to be sad when engineering comes out. I hope so, War. I really do. I hope engineering turns the tables on solo capital piloting. I think solo capital ships is a bane and very detrimental to the long-term health of the game. So, just be starter ships after 1.0? Yeah, I'm fine with starter ships. As long as they keep the power balance where it is today. I wouldn't be surprised if they justify continued ship sales by saying, well, you can craft better. I hope. That's not an acceptable answer from me home. I hope they don't try. How much you whale, Grolo? I'm not a whale. I would not call myself a whale. But I'm invested. It would be nice if ships gave 1 copy and then a timed 1-use blueprint to recraft it when lost, but people would riot. Yeah, that's one way. I think blueprints are permanent though. Like, I don't think they're planning on 1-use blueprints. I could be wrong about that. I'm okay with a permanent blueprint for a ship that you buy, but again, just has to go through the crafting system so that you're paying the resources to build it. How is mining in the game anyway? I haven't tried the mining game loop yet. Any recommendations on how I should start? Ship or ground vehicle? I love mining. Definitely try it. If you enjoy mining in other games, I would try it in this one. It's a lot higher fidelity than other games. If you're used to something like EVO Online where you just kind of click a button and watch your lasers fire, it's a lot more involved than that. It's a lot of fun. I like ground mining. I really don't know which one is more lucrative. There's something about loading up a rock, which is the name of the ground mining vehicle, on the back of a Cutlass Black or something, flying somewhere and driving off the back ramp and shooting some lasers at some rocks. The whole experience is really fun, but space mining in an asteroid belt can also be fun. Lots of options. You can even mine in in one of those mechanized suits now. The Atlas Geo has a jetpack on it. You can bounce around. It's all a lot of fun, man. I have hope for engineering ending the solo capital. I'm glad you do. I hope so too. I really hope it does. My only problem, the only reason I'm still raising it as an issue, the candidate, is that they give us the solution, but then they give something to counter the solution, right? Like, engineering seems like a very sound solution to solo capitals. But then they also mention things like NPC crew and AI blades, and I'm thinking, engineering feels like the perfect solution, but then you kind of reverse it. If you start talking like, and eventually you can have NPC crew to do the engineering for you, like, I don't get it. As long as I stick to the guns and don't chicken out from pulling that trigger, yeah. I guess Eve doesn't require multiple people to crew bigger ships, so Star Citizen kind of self-balances when it comes to selling ships in comparison, but the economy is definitely going to be interesting. Yeah. Spot on. They said they're going to have conditions for certain blueprints, like a time limit or use limit. It's a good way to limit the org when crafting 5 Bengals in a row. Yeah, that's a good point, Ironmore. Yeah, I wasn't even thinking about that. That makes sense. I know EVE Online has the same type of system, and I've seen other games with like limited use blueprints, and that's a good reason to do that. I agree. They also have, they're going to be launching a much more sophisticated in-game insurance system, so, there's a lot of things we need to see how they play out. The in-game insurance system is a good reason that you don't need an unlimited run blueprint. They have plans for some one-use ones? Yeah, okay. I absolutely don't want solo capital ships or even anything beyond like a colony to be a thing. Yeah. Me too. I think colony size is probably reaching the limit of what should be viable to be solo piloted. I agree. I haven't specified anything. It would be... Oh, redacted. If you've done salvage, yeah. Mining is, I would say mining is, I don't know if you've heard CIG talk about game loops, like tiers. Like they'll refer to some game loops as tier 0 and others as tier 1. Like I would say that the mining loop is higher tier than the salvage loop. It's more refined. There's more depth there. With mining, you get to make a lot of choices about your setup and your configuration. There's a lot of different mining lasers. There's mining gadgets. There's like components and accessories for mining lasers. Ones that can give you permanent adjustments. One give you temporary boost. There's a lot more depth to mining than salvage. I can say that. They said there'd be over 1,000 different blueprints. Amazing. That's what I like to hear. The crafting system in general is in like early design phase when they talked about it, so giving specifics there until they know how to balance it would be weird. But a lot of single-use blueprints would probably be ships. Yeah, that makes sense. I think I was just misthinking wrong whenever I mentioned permanent use blueprints. I don't know about purchasing. See, that's going to make purchasing blueprints weird and complicated. Like, how many runs do you get from them? I don't know. Because if in-game blueprints are limited run, and you have to work like somebody mentioned, like imagine an org who wants to produce a lot of Bengals. If they have to work their butts off for a 1-run Bengal blueprint, then having the ability to purchase a Bengal blueprint on the store, even if it's 5 runs, I mean that. Like this is where microtransactions start to creep in and really affect the game in a negative way, right? Because if I could buy like a 5-run blueprint on the store, that really devalues the work that people are doing in game for that 1-run Bengal blueprint. So I would not want to see that. I don't want to see anything that devalues in-game time. Like paying to skip time investment is very similar to pay for power. NPC crew will require hands-on, and for blades, it will be capped by power draw. What do you mean by NPC crew will require hands-on? What does that mean, Kennedy? There are a couple small-scale co-op space games like Void, Jump Space. They revolve around 4-player crew consisting of pilot, gunners, and engineers. I haven't played any of those. I want to. I'm hearing a lot of good stuff about Jump Space. Mining is more active engagement with the loop. It's really fun. Yeah, I agree, Ironmore. It's a lot more in depth than salvage. Even though I think salvage is more profitable, at least right now. But like both salvage and mining, they're going to really benefit from things like base building and crafting coming online. Like just selling the stuff to vendors for credits is sucky. That's why it's one of the many reasons I'm so excited for crafting and base building to come online to give a lot more meaning to these game loops. Fun as hell, where everyone has a role to perform, for the ship to function, mission to succeed. That's how it needs to. Everyone has a role. Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's the dream for Star Citizen. Everybody on the ship has a role, and if everybody's performing their role well, then that ship is performing well. That's what I want to see. But there's a lot of balance to overcome to get there. Because if you can crew a ship with NPCs or whatever to overcome the multi-crew requirements, it becomes really difficult to overcome even the tank of a fleet, right? Like imagine you have your fleet is 5 fully crewed Idrises, 10 people each. So you got 50 players. And then the opposing fleet is 50 Idrises, 1 pilot each. Sorry, my throat. Like, that becomes really difficult to balance. Like, it needs to be impossible to operate a Javelin, or an Idris with 1 person, right? Because if you have 10 times the ships, that's 10 times the hull, 10 times the armor, 10 times the shielding. That's a really difficult thing to balance, which is why it just has to be impossible. With NPC crew, you'll have to pay them, and the more experience they have, the more they cost. This will also be for running cost, and solo players won't be able to afford to run capital ships. Yeah, I understand that, Sly, but that doesn't apply to organizations. So if 2 orgs are entering a fleet battle, if 1 org can get a competitive advantage by even temporarily staffing their fleet with nothing but NPC crew, they're going to do it. And now you have 1 person per ship fleet battles. We don't want to be there. New to the tier thing, but good to know. Yeah. If you have to direct the crew by hand, it will be hard to crew a capital solo. Yeah. Somebody else mentioned that, which I hadn't really thought about. Like, it would be helpful if the crew was not autonomous and you were having to dispatch constant orders. That would definitely help. We'll see. I mean, that would be better than them just automatically doing all the engineering for you and automatically firing your weapons, like all that stuff. Well, but we'll see. Yeah, it's a slippery slope for sure. That's also something they talked about in SCL. They were going to make the skins to a gun, for example, into a permanent blueprint, and not the gun itself. Somebody did mention that to me. I think I'm more okay with that than buying the armor. Like if I could just buy a color change for armor, I'm okay with that. More okay with it than I am buying the armor, because then if you have to find the armor in game and then you can buy a skin to decorate it, like I can differentiate that better in my mind. I still know what you went through to get that armor. I like that better. Iron War's also interested in jump space. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna check it out. Real quick, just pausing, just to say, if you're looking for a place to watch the upcoming CitizenCon Direct with, jump into the Discord. We're gonna have a big watch party for it. I am super pumped, and so far this crew has been amazing tonight. So I would welcome any and all of you to come join us for the watch party. I'll put a link to our Discord in chat again, just in case you want to come hang out and get ready for said launch party. It's October. What is it again? October. I keep forgetting. October 11th. So it's coming up fast. Anyway, there you go. There's a link to our Discord. They've talked in the past about having to direct them around. They won't just be brainless automated AI. They're supposed to be intelligent. I hope. Yeah, October 11th. Thanks. I think Gen AI NPC crew. Oh my gosh. I don't think we're going to get that anytime soon or more. But yeah, I think that would be better than automated NPC crew AI. I don't know if it'll be good enough. I mean, there's only one way to tell. We have to see it in practice. We just have to make sure that organizations are not incentivized to run a capital ship full of NPCs. We just have to make sure that does not give them a competitive advantage over another organization that is fully crewing a ship with humans. And again, I think it's going to be tricky. How do you overcome 10 times the hit points, 10 times the shields? Supposed to have their own stats. I mean, one way is obviously boarding. But I don't know if boarding gameplay will be fast enough. It's really going to depend on a whole lot of things. It's going to depend on time to kill. You know, one thing I keep dreaming about that I loved. I'd love to hear what you all think about it, but I think it was not this past CitizenCon, but the one before maybe. They had a special episode where they had some of the devs come on and talk about capital ship combat. And in there they talked about like what they want it to look like, and they described, you know, 2 opposing javelins or whatever, or Idrises. And, you know, they said in the future it's not going to be like one Idris pulls up to another and they just blast each other until one's shields fall down. It's going to be more of an orchestrated event where you're going to have to scramble your fighters. Those fighters are going to be responsible for taking out shield generators, taking out turrets, taking out point defense systems, all that stuff on the enemy, and softening up the shields is the way they described it, so that your capital ship could fire its big cannons to do serious damage to the opposing capital ships. And they talked about those like maps and globes in the capital ships being used by shot callers so that you could pinpoint targets on the opposing capital ship for your fighters to hit. Like, that's the kind of gameplay that excites me. And if that's true, like if we reach that point, then I can totally see NPC crew not being viable. So my hope jar is still pretty full just based on that description, because in that world I see NPC crew completely falling down and not being able to hold their own in PvP. I played Jump Space the other night, had a blast. It's in early access. Everything's in early access. Oh my gosh. I think I'm becoming allergic to early access. But whatever. It's light on content. Yeah, that's par for the course. But what is there is very good. Well, that's good to hear. Maybe I'll download another early access game and just sneeze a little bit. I believe they have already said NPC crew will be post 1.0, so it's not something that will be for a while. Yeah, I hear that too. Oh, show, which is good. I'll be there, brother, and very glad I don't have to wake up at like 4. I know. Last CitizenCon, we were all awake at like 4 a.m. because it was EU time. That was brutal. I'm glad this one will be later. I'll be taking off that day, so I'll definitely join for that if I don't have to host one for our org. I think we were thinking of doing a watch party too. Yeah, I understand that, Kennedy. If you end up not doing it and you want a place to hang out, come on over. But if you do, maybe we can just share notes afterwards. It's hard enough to get Gen AI to populate a form correctly every time, never mind act in character consistently in a huge sandbox game. Yeah, right? I hear that, Chrome Dome. Populate a form. It's so true. We got a ways to go. That episode with John Crew and Rich Tyler was amazing. It was was that okay? Okay, Canada, you know exactly what I'm talking about. That show pumped me up like few others. Um, and like that's the answer, right? Like if we can get that kind of orchestrated capital ship combat, then NPC crew capital ships just fade away. Hopefully, you still have the risk of like, well, can 50 Idrises pummel 5 Idrises and just circumvent the whole thing? Like, can you obliterate the shields with 10 times the firepower? I don't know. We'll still have to deal with that, but hopefully dials can be turned and to get that all working properly. Someone who's currently studying game design, Citizen Con is going to be Eye Candy Deluxe. Nice, Iron War. Are you doing a career change, or is this kind of the first career you're prepping for? At least they have been so far. I giggled like a schoolgirl in the Genesis presentation. Yeah, I mean the Genesis stuff looked awesome, no doubt. As long as it's not viable and just doable, yeah, fair. But very excited for the intersection of the new Genesis tech and some of the stuff they're doing now with local mission generation and that kind of stuff. And this all goes back to what we were talking about very, very early in this live show, which was we talked about planet side gameplay and how that was important for the longevity of this game. And I can like all these things I can see, like, because a lot of that Genesis tech was making the planets more fleshed out in general, but also scattering and localizing resources and POIs, putting them within the proper proximity to one another so that, you know, landscapes began to make sense and feel natural. And then on the other side, you have the mission teams working on local mission generation so that whenever you're talking to one person for a mission or you're picking up a mission, it can lead into other missions nearby. And I think these things coming together are going to bolster and support that planet-side gameplay that we are yearning for, and I'm pretty pumped about that. So, also pumped about Genesis. First career aiming for systems design, probably. That's amazing, dude. Very cool. You got your eye on CIG, Iron War? You gonna apply at CIG? That presentation was awesome. The Redwood Forest looked insane. I know, right? It did. So did the swamps. The swamps looked amazing. Some of that jungle stuff. Either that or gameplay design. I haven't really decided yet. Yeah. I mean, it's all awesome. I would definitely lean towards the system stuff myself. But I'm a systems guy, so. Star Wars. Oh, yeah. I remember that. Like the speeder bike. That was really cool. Yeah. I'm one area that I'm really pumped to see more of that also goes more into like the planet side gameplay is just the survival aspects of the game. You know, right now it feels like the survival aspects are basically just drink a cruise. But I can't wait to see more of that. And I think planet side gameplay will lead into that as well, like environmental hazards, weather, all that kind of stuff. Radiation. And the submerged ship in the swamp look like loop ship, yeah. Not there yet. Saw an opening, but finding an entry level job is hard in that world, so it's probably going to take a while. Yeah, I got you. I was there. I know. know all too well. But yeah, very pumped for the survival stuff. I just went back and rewatched Wandering the Scattered Bases Around the Planet Surface, exactly. And don't even get me started on roads. I can't wait. I know it's like a running joke now. I was watching that SCL with Jared was basically laughing about the roads question, but I can't wait for roads. They showed the ray trace global illumination. I know, right? Tell you what, though, I've been surprised at how well the engine's been performing on my PC lately. It's pretty impressive. It'll be interesting to see if we make any more gains when the Vulcan stuff comes off the PTR and into live. I haven't been on PTR at all, so I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what they do with survival plus base building plus MMO. Not sure there's an existing game that does that. Chrome Dome. That is exactly what my next video is going to be about. It's in process right now, so we'll be talking more about that soon on the in the comments. But yeah, there is not an MMO that goes that far yet. Yeah. Definitely some good graphics to be enjoyed. There's some if you just think survival base building MMO, there are some. I can think of one game right now that is tackling that, and that is Pax Dei. Pax Dei's planning on launching this year, and it tackles base building. Well, actually, no, it does not have the survival aspect. There's no survival gameplay in Pax Dei, so it's missing that piece. And it's certainly not of the scale that Star Citizen is on. Dune Awakening to some extent, but survival becomes more like a chore at one point, yeah. I've enjoyed Dune Awakening, though. Yeah, exactly. Home. Yeah, Pax Dei completely got rid of the survival aspect. They had food and drink, but it was just for buffs. You wouldn't die if you didn't get survival elements. Yeah, it goes that direction. So yeah, I think in a lot of ways, Star Citizen will be the first. But yeah, the video I'm working on that hopefully will be done next week. We'll go even further on that topic. It's because I think it goes well beyond those three elements. There's so much coming together in this game. It's quite impressive. Also, speaking of Dune Awakening, their implementation of server meshing is a bit weirder, and I noticed a lot of cross-border lag, no rendering distance. I guess they don't use yeah, no. Dune Awakening uses the Unreal Engine 5 meshing, which is the exact same meshing used by Pax Dei, and you get the exact same performance in Pax Dei. Anytime you cross a server line, you get this weird jank lag. You can't render things on the other side of the line. If you're following somebody and they cross the line before you do, they vanish. Ashes of Creation is also built on top of this, but Ashes of Creation basically ripped out the entire networking stack from Unreal Engine and re-implemented their own. But they still have a lot of the same problems where if you're following somebody who crosses a line, like a server line, they just vanish in front of you. You lose sight of them until you also cross the server line. When you're flying around a Star Citizen crossing these lines, I think we're to the point now where I don't even notice when I cross a line. It never impacts my visibility. Like I don't know, maybe they've just done some really clever things, but I mean, it's easy to take it for granted. But if you go to some of these other games, you can see just how bad meshing can be. Pretty crazy. I know how survival works in Valheim. Yeah. Pax building system is the new bar, though. Yeah, never spent as much time building things just for the RP as in that game. Yeah, I hear you. The building system is second to none. Really good. We got a lot of people playing that game too. It's I'm excited for the launch. I mean, I'm gonna get in there for launch and check it out. I'm not playing it right now. I haven't played since early in the early access. But again, like I said, I'm becoming allergic to early access games and wipes. So I'm not gonna touch it again until after it launches. But I'm definitely gonna get in there and check it out. I'm hoping to make some improvements on the mesh line crossing. I'm hoping to make some improvements on combat. I'm really optimistic for what they're doing with the economy in that game. I think we could be looking at the second best economy, maybe second to none other than EVE Online. They're doing some really impressive stuff there. I guess Star Citizen server meshing is truly unique. Yes, it is. It's one of a kind. I'm just wondering how far it can go with DSM. DSM, I mean, yeah, in theory, it may just seem like magic, and like we have an infinite universe that just works. I still think there are some edge cases where it could collapse on itself, and I expect them to have escape hatches and valves for whenever that happens, because never underestimate a player's desire to break things intentionally or unintentionally. You know, things like the Daymar rally are really going to stress it. But I think they can come up with mechanics that make it kind of invisible to us. We'll see. I have a couple videos on that topic too. If you're interested in that, go search for the proximity problem in Star Citizen. I talk a lot more about the ways that dynamic server meshing might break and how they can address it. I tried getting into Ashes of Creation and hit character breaking bug in the first 10 minutes. I haven't tried it since, yeah. I don't know. I have a lot of hope for Ashes, but at the same time, we're on phase 3 of Alpha 2, which is supposed to be the final phase, and it feels like the worst phase yet as far as stability and performance and functionality. It's I don't know. I'm still holding out hope. I really like Steven, who is the mastermind behind that project. I think he has put a lot of effort into the game. He's done a lot of really great work, and I think he deserves a successful game launch, so my fingers are crossed for him. But yeah, this phase does not look good. Taco Bell acquired. Nice. Is it more buggy than Star Citizen? Yes, Ashes of Creation is probably buggier than Star Citizen right now, which is a hell of an achievement. I don't know why they're stuck in this weird void where every survival game has to have bare bones basic combat. Yeah, I don't know, man. But at the same time, Kenthis, I think that I was just talking with another person about this the other day. Like, I think Pax Dei may enjoy a larger audience because it's going to attract the type of player that enjoys survival games. So, the kind of players who enjoy Dune, Conan Exiles, Ark, these are the kind of players who are not used to really great combat. And I actually think that the combat in Pax Dei is probably better than those games. So I actually think that Pax Dei has an audience and a market out there. And it could be a pretty successful game because of that. I just want a survival game where I get almost action-like combat. Why does it always have to be left-click poke with a spear? I don't know, man. I don't know. Other than combat's obviously hard because a lot of games get it wrong. Star Citizen has combat kind of easy if you think about it. I mean, I think FPS style combat is probably a lot easier to get right than sword and sorcery combat. I'm just doing some theory crafting, and there's only a certain amount of servers a hybrid can support, and that's kind of where it breaks. Unless they can find a way to transfer data between hybrids. Iron War, you're exactly right. That's what I talk about in the video I did on the proximity problem. Sorry if I derailed a bit, but I haven't really had an open line to discuss with someone before. Yeah, no, you're spot on. The final version of the architecture is the hybrid will eventually go away. The hybrid's getting split up into multiple services, and the important service there is the replication layer, which will be comprised of a bunch of replicants. And so the replicant will be doing that data transfer job. And yeah, once you get too many people concentrated too densely in an area, you lose the ability to partition them into multiple game servers exactly because of what you're talking about. You begin to have to transfer too much data between the servers, and the network actually becomes the bottleneck. I hope we get to the Mega Shard goal, but one step at a time. Yeah, that would be great, but I don't see it happening. I mean, I don't think they're ever going to have like EU and US and Oceanic servers all on the same global shard like E1 line. I don't think it can happen because of latency. And FP all right. An action combat game like Star Citizen just is not compatible with elevated latency. Like, EVE Online was able to pull off one global universe because that style of game and that style of combat was tolerant for latency. They even built it into the game as a way of scaling combat, right, through time dilation. So, totally different game, totally different mechanics. Totally different performance concerns, and I don't think we're ever going to have one global universe in Star Citizen as a result. I agree. It is the ultimate dream, but there's a lot of problems. What did you mean by how bad meshing can be? Are their backends rough or for perf or stability and memory? I'm talking about the handoff. So in something like Pax Dei or Ashes of Creation or even Dune Awakening, the player notices the handoff between the shards, between the area servers. So like in the deep desert, for example, in Dune Awakening, the entire deep desert is divided up into 9 servers, and they're squares, they're just tiles. And anytime you transition from one to another, you feel it. Like, you lag out a little bit. If somebody in front of you transitions before you, they vanish. You can't see them across the server line. Your client kind of freezes as it connects to the next shard. And you see this exact same thing in Pax Dei. You see the exact same thing in Ashes of Creation. And so, do not take advantage, or do not take for granted the smoothness of mesh line transitions in Star Citizen. I think how smooth it is in Star Citizen is precisely because of the investments they've made in their architecture and their technology. Like the way they're doing the replication and the handoff is doing wonders for the user perception, because I can't tell whenever I'm transitioning in Star Citizen. Now, some of that may be due to just optimizing where the mesh lines are, right? Like in Star Citizen, maybe they've got it set up in such a way where I'm always kind of in high-speed warp whenever I cross a mesh line. Maybe I'm never doing it on foot. I don't know. I haven't really looked that much into it, but like where the lines are. But you can do a lot of very clever things just by where you position those kinds of things. Now, in a game like Pax Dei, you don't have that luxury, right? Like, you got one continuous forest and people are just running all around it. And so you're going to be on foot and you're going to be walking across the mesh lines. You're not going to be in hyperspace where maybe it can be hidden from you a little bit. So maybe that's part of the reason, but it's pretty bad in all three of those games, honestly. You're off for the night. Have a good night, Redacted. I'm going to be wrapping up here soon, too. I'll pop into the Discord next time when I see you. Thanks all for the great content. Yep. Have a good night, man. Really glad you popped in. I mean, SC is looking pretty good lately versus a lot of the early access stuff. And even big releases like Borderlands 4 and its performance issues, I know. I've been having performance issues with the Unreal Engine in general. I don't know. I've heard there's some kind of bug in Unreal Engine affecting NVIDIA cards. I don't know how true that is. I have an NVIDIA, and I can tell you that I've had a lot of problems with a lot of the recent Unreal Engine launches. Don't know why. Star Citizen diverted a lot of their devs to stabilize the game, and I don't like the idea of it long term, but at least I have something to play. Right? I'm with you, Iron War. I saw the benefit of the decision, but I was also a little sad that some of the features were going to take longer to see. Fred Eric, not sure if it came up already, but after the Hot Button series is done for now, could you see yourself doing more technical series? Yeah, man. I'm always on the lookout for technical discussions to be had. Are you? I assume you're talking about kind of the deep dives that I've done in the past. I'm working on another video right now, which is a deep dive into the future state of Star Citizen. It's gonna be a little different format for me. I'm gonna be talking more about gameplay and how gameplay, like some of the goals and promises of Star Citizen are enabled by the technology. So hopefully that is in line with what you're looking for. It's yeah. I never plan on stopping the technical slant of the channel and some of the deep dives I'm doing. So there will definitely be more of it. Looks like a video I should watch and should have definitely watched earlier. Appreciate you, man. Yeah, Ironmore. Go check it out. Let me know what you think. Also, the Discord I linked earlier, I have a channel category on the Discord server. If you join it, you can just say, I'm here to watch Grolo. There's a, like, if you want to chat outside of the video comments, that's a good place to do it. We have a chattering channel just for followers of the channel. We also have a dev chat channel just for devs. We have a lot of devs that wandered in there from the channel. So if you want to talk about systems coding, that kind of stuff, it's a good place to do it. I'll link it again here soon. They've talked about database mesh. Would that solve that problem of latency? Which latency are you talking about? Are you talking about the handoff latency I was just talking about, Candy? I know the database mesh that you're talking about. I'm just not sure the latency that you're talking about. The dissecting different approaches and showing alternatives, speaking about more whiteboard time, yeah. Definitely, Fred Eric. We're done. We're going to do more of that. Again, I'm doing this chat tonight. Tomorrow, I'm going to be a guest on Space Tomatoes podcast. I expect that to be available for everybody to watch on Monday. And then I'm hoping a little bit later next week, I will have the video that I'm working on now done and ready to go. And again, that's going to be more of a deeper dive into the game and the tech behind it, and a lot more future looking. So, and then I'm not sure after that, but we'll definitely be looking for more technical items to discuss. I don't plan too far ahead. I'd go back and try PAX again if they just had some NPCs, mounts, bosses, mechanics, lore, but it doesn't have any of that. They need to give people a reason to play. Well, hopefully soon. There really isn't even a ton of incentive for player interaction in the game right now outside of your clan. Yeah. Although, I do think that the economic systems that Pax Dei is putting in place will incentivize player interactions. Data mesh doesn't handle latency because I think the latency Grolo was talking about is more related to physical distance from the server. Yeah, I still don't know which latency we're talking about. Sorry, I'm still catching up on chat here. Dune suffers from the same issue. An FPS game may never be able to have a single global server until quantum communications or something. Oh, we're talking about region latency? Yeah. Yeah, there's just no way to, because if you're trying to do one global shard for Star Citizen where all regions are playing together, even if you have a distributed database mesh across the world and every region is talking to its own local cluster within that mesh, and they don't have to cross the Atlantic Ocean on an undersea cable, you still have the issue that if a European player and an American player are in the same area of space, but they're talking to their local meshes on their own respective continents, you still need that state transfer so that the American player can see what the European player is doing, right? You got to know if they're firing their missiles at you. And the latency of that state crossing the Atlantic cable is just too much. I just don't see how it can work in an action combat game. It worked in Eve because in Eve, players dispatched commands. The server calculated the result of those commands, and it sent the information back. And there could be a lot of latency in that exchange. It didn't really matter, right? Because you were not in action control of the way your gun was pointed. You said, hey, I want to orbit this object at 10 kilometers. And then the server told you where you were on every tick. And you would say, I want to fire my guns at that object. You didn't have to aim at the object. You just told the server, I want to fire my guns at the object. And it calculated it. So, like, Eve is very, very lenient on its latency requirements. But in Star Citizen, we are literally aiming at something, and you have to aim correctly. It's really hard for you to be tolerant for a 1 millisecond or a 1 second latency across an Atlantic cable to know where your opponent's at, right? Like, how do you compensate for that? It's a speed of light problem, sadly. I think PAX has an identity problem. They need to decide what their game is going to be. A PvP-focused MMO, a smaller scale survival game, or maybe 100 play. Yeah. I think they know what they want it to be. It's just an execution problem and a money problem. I think they need more devs and more time to get to where they want to be. They recently published an updated roadmap on their website that details what they want PvP and the end game to look like. They're not there yet. But, like, if you read through it, I think their idea is good. But the sad reality is they're running out of money. They need to launch the game. They need to do something to get more money. So. That's what I've heard, some performance issues with that. But open world games are hard in general. So I'm not surprised if someone thought wrong simply because of what the genre is. Yeah. Sounds awesome, Fred Eric. Thanks. I'm glad. Check it out. Let me know what you think. It should be out next week. Later in the week. I expect mid to end of next week. Yeah, the handoff. Okay. Yeah, I mean, so we're talking about two different things. We're talking about the regional latency, which I was just droning on about, and then the server mesh handoff latency. That's something that seems to be core to the Unreal Engine 5's meshing technology. I don't know what is wrong with it, but every game I've played that employs Unreal's meshing technology suffers from the same problem. I'm not a Unreal Engine dev, so I can't really comment on the specifics as to why it has the problem. Like, Star Citizen has done a really good job of publicizing their architecture, and I'm just really interested in the project, so I've done a lot of digging on Star Citizen's architecture, so I can talk about why it works well. But you can also just play the game and see that it's working well. I have not really dug into the internals of Unreal Engine 5 to comment on why it's having handoff problems. I would love if somebody else knew. Unfortunately, I hope they can pull off some space magic. If you're talking about the regional clusters, yeah, I hope so too, but I don't see how. Maybe in the future with quantum entanglement. Maybe that'll get us past the speed of light limitations. Reducing latency to 50 milliseconds with Starlink or similar? I don't see how. Light has to actually travel further to Starlink than it does across the transatlantic cable. I actually don't know. I'd have to look into what the lowest latency. Let me Google that real quick. I wish I had a buddy here. I have a buddy in the telecom industry. He actually was on the project that ran some of these fibers across the Atlantic Ocean. He was telling me about the ships that do this work. I never even thought about it. He said it's these huge ships, and they look like giant toilet bowls, and the coils are just wound along this huge bowl, and these ships just sail across the water, dropping this line into the sea. But he actually knew. I remember him telling me, but I have to Google it because I don't remember. Well, you're not too far off, Iron War. Looks like this is based on the speed of light on fiber and the typical cable length across the ocean. The fastest round trip you could expect to see is 64.7 milliseconds. The real world best case has been, what? 66 milliseconds. The typical time that you see, however, is not the best case record breaking things. It says New York to Frankfurt is in like the 90 millisecond range. New York to London, typically 75 millisecond range. So there you go. Which is not terrible. That's actually better than I thought. So who knows? Could we handle 75 milliseconds of latency on action combat? Now, keep in mind that that's just for the data transmission across the cable. That's not, you're going to see more latency than that because the game is going to have its own latency, right? The time it takes for games to calculate and send this data and receive and process this data, that's going to be however many milliseconds that is. The time it takes to write that data to the replication layer, and for the replication layer to get that out across the fiber. You know, you're not just looking at that. So that's 75 milliseconds from New York to London. That is just the fiber latency. When you add on the latency that you incur by crossing through a few routers, your edge network devices, you know, your gateway, your firewall, whatever servers it has to bounce across, whatever replicants it has to cross, that 75 milliseconds probably quickly going to become 150 milliseconds when you add all that stuff in. Maybe 125 if you have really, really Johnny on the spot engineers. I would say just imagine you had some of the best engineers on earth and the best architecture and all the best stuff, and you could get it to like 100. I think that's probably too optimistic. I think 125 is really the best case scenario. If the wire alone is 75, then 125 is probably your best case scenario, in my mind. I could be off by a little bit one way or the other. So, is that much latency acceptable in FPS combat? I don't know. I know that games and front end people have done some crazy stuff to squeeze blood out of stones. I've read about some of the advanced protocols they do in games like Mortal Kombat, and some of the online fighting games have employed some interesting kind of predictive networking technology where you predict what the next packet you're going to get is, right? And then you correct if the packet shows up and it's wrong, like your prediction was wrong. And you do this so quickly that you actually don't notice that you're correcting stuff. Maybe some of that could be employed to virtually shave off some milliseconds, but I wouldn't expect it to be like having the time. So again, that stuff's a little outside my area of expertise, but it's going to be a really difficult problem to overcome. I don't know if they're going to be able to. Light via satellite faster than cable. Okay, well, that's news to me. Speed of light in different mediums. Well, I know speed of light in a vacuum's the fastest. However, actually, the same buddy that I was talking about who was on those toilet bowl ships laying the thing in the Atlantic, he was telling me that. So I'm not an expert on fiber. I'm not an expert on like the physical layer of networking. I work at like the logical layer and above. But he was telling me there's some crazy work going on in the fiber space that I would have never even known about, like vacuum fiber. He's telling me about where they're doing work to actually achieve vacuum speeds through fiber. So maybe what you're saying, Chrome, is true today, but maybe it won't be true forever. Yeah, I was thinking distance was the main thing, but I wasn't even thinking about the speed of light across a vacuum versus whatever is in fiber today. But it would be interesting to see if that changes as the way fiber is constructed changes. If they can achieve vacuums in fiber cabling, then could get a lot faster. It's the processing in the middle satellite will be worse. Yeah, could be. Again, I'm not an expert on that stuff. What about the breakthrough where they used more light frequency bands? I know it doesn't help with latency, but maybe it's something. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing, Ironmore. It doesn't help with latency. It only helps with bandwidth. Which I don't know that bandwidth is a limiting factor today. The only thing that having more bandwidth is going to do is it's going to make using that cheaper. So it's going to reduce the cost, but it's not going to increase the performance. I believe CIG does some prediction stuff. I feel like they have said that before. Yeah, they might. There's a name for it that's escaping me right now. I've heard of it's a certain type of protocol that's really common in the fighting games. Just because of the timing. I mean, they use it in fighting games even without going cross region, like just because timing is so critical in those games that they use this stuff to give the players a better experience there. But the name of it has escaped me. I'll have to go look it up again. Yeah, ping is not too noticeable, so I definitely think they are doing that. Yeah. Cool. Well, like I said before, this has been a tremendous crowd. I'm going to put this in here in chat one more time. again, that Discord link gets you to my Discord. I have a place on there, and we just talk about channel stuff. If you're interested in Star Citizen stuff, there's a channel for that too. Whenever you join the Discord server, it'll pop up and it'll ask you like, what are you here for? You're here for Grolo's channel, you're here for Star Citizen, whatever. So you can just pick the thing that interests you, and then you'll kind of get an experience just catered to that. So we're not going to bombard you to join guilds or anything like that. You can just come, chat, hang out. If you want to talk dev stuff, we got channels for that. If you want to talk Star Citizen, we got stuff for that. And October 11th, I am definitely going to be doing a watch party for CitizenCon Direct. I'm pumped for that. So, you've all been great here tonight. I would love to check that out with anybody who wants to join from this crew. I went way later tonight than I had intended to go. I was planning on 2 hours max, and we've been at this for a little over 3. So I appreciate y'all for hanging out and making this fun. Anytime I do one of these things, I'm always like, man, is anybody even going to show up? We had a lot more people than I expected. So thanks for that. Thanks for everyone who watches this stuff and watches the stuff on the channel. And again, Space Tomato tomorrow. Doing a podcast with him. That should be out Monday. I'll link that. I'll do like a YouTube post to link everybody to that. Rollback netcode. Thank you, Ark. That is what I was looking for. That's the predictive stuff on the wire that they're doing. And I lost my train of thought. Oh yeah. You should see a podcast with me and Space Tomato by Monday. And then later next week, that video I was talking about that I'm working on right now for Star Citizen should be out. So, yeah. Awesome. Glad you joined, Kennedy. I'll see you there. Well, I'm catching up on the last chat messages. Nash is in here. What the hell? All you people who were asking about Ashes of Creation earlier, Nash is the guy to talk to. If you join the server, you can find Nash there. He'll get you any answers you want on Ashes of Creation. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, what Ark said on the rollback netcode. Awesome. Yeah, glad you had fun, man. Gonna call it there. Anybody who joined, I'll be chatting with you soon. Awesome. Thanks for watching the podcast. And I'll catch you in the comments of the next video or on Discord. Thanks all. Yeah, man. I look forward to doing more Ironware. I like doing these every once in a while, so I always try to put a post on the post page whenever they're going to be doing. All right. I'll catch y'all later. Good night.
wings, I told the devil. Clip my angel wings, I told the devil.